Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Western Onzere and this is Minic Analytics, where we show you how to build, deploy, and monitor your machine learning and AI systems in production. Today we are continuing with our machine learning project. This will be the customer churn project, and in this video we are going to set up the project environment, which will include creating and cloning a Git repository. Also, we are going to set up a Python virtual environment in VS Code. Then we'll organize the project files and folders, and as well as installing all the dependencies that are necessary for this project. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please do so, and let's get started. We are going to start by creating the Git repository. So under your Git, so I'll just click the button new. Then from here, you'll be taken to this page. Then from here, I'll first provide the name of my repository. So I'll just say, I'll call it Churn Pred. So let's say Churn Pred. I think this one is okay. It's available. Then I'll want my repository to be public, so everyone on the internet can see this repository. And I choose you choose to commit anyway. So that's it. So I want my repository to be public so that I can share with anyone watching this video. Then I'll to initialize the repository, I'll add a README file. So here you provide descriptions about your project. Then I'll also include a git ignore file. Then I'll specify the programming language. So I'm using Python. Then in terms of the license, license tells others what they can do and can't do with your code. So Git recommends that you provide a license. So I'll just use, you can choose any. I'm going to use MIT license. So after you have done this, then you can just click on creating repository, and this will create your repository. So this is the Churnpred repository. So after this, we need to clone this repository. So the next step is that I'll open the folder to where I want to clone this repository. And in this bar up here, you can just open this folder directly. So you type cmd space, then this file path. Then from here, folder path. Then you can, when you click enter, you're going to automatically open that file directly in your command prompt. Then from here, I'm going to use the git clone command. Then git clone, you pair that with the this web URL so that you're able to clone that repository. So git clone, then I'll just insert the link URL. Then from there, cloning into Churnpred. Then that's it. So by receiving objects 100%, that's it. So we have cloned the Git repository to a folder in our local workstation. So I think that's it. So see, just clear the screen, and then I'll close my command prompt. So you can see now we have the Churnpred folder. So the next step obviously will be about creating a Python environment. So I'll just go to VS Code, then I'll open VS Code. So from here you can see we have the Churnpred folder. So if you want to see how if you're opening a VS Code for the first time, so you can click a file, new window. So in the new window section, then you can click open folder. Then from the open folder, you can just go directly to where you have saved your folder. Then Churnpred, select the folder. Then that's it. You'll be having your you'll have now opened your folder. So once that is done, then the next step will be about creating our Python environment. So I'll just go to my terminal, open a new terminal. Then in my terminal, I'm going to use this command to create. Then after that, activate Python environment, virtual environment. So this environment will enable us to download and install all the dependencies that are necessary for our project. So I'm going to use the command conda create -p venv. So venv. So this is the name of the virtual environment that I'm going to create. Then I'll specify the Python version. I'll use 3.9. Then I'll just provide a notation here so that when we are asked about to confirm something or not, then we'll just pick up from here. Then this means it's a yes. So when you're asked to do something, it will just assume it's a yes, then it will proceed. So conda create -p venv Python 3.9. Then this notation here. Then you just press enter. Then from here you will see that your environment will be formed or will be created. Okay. So when obviously this will take some time, and I'm not going to wait for it. So as the environment is being created, then as we are going to create the project files and folders. So under the Churn pred, this folder here, then you can just click on a new file. Then from the new file, create a new file template. So template.py. So from here, the templates.py, we are going to provide the necessary. We're going to provide the necessary files and folders for our project. So as you can see now, the creation of the project is commencing. So you'll just see at the end, you'll just see I think it's okay. It's running okay. So let's create the project templates and the necessary files. So I had already prepared that, and so I'll just show you step by step what I had already done. So in the project files, when creating the project files and the folders, so we can just create a function like this or a template like this. Then with one shot, which I can just execute this command, and we are able to create all these files and folders that are necessary for our project. So basically, I'm just importing the libraries to use. Then we are going to define the package name. So package name as listed here. Then we are going to give a list of the files to be created. So instead of creating these files one by one, so we are just going to provide a list of all the files that we will be needing in this project. So you must have known beforehand what files you're going to be used, or so that I just create a list of these files like this. So these are just to name a few. So different for our machine learning project, it will be having different components, such as the data ingestion component, validation component, the data transformation component, model trainer, model evaluation. Also, I think we'll add another one, which will be the model evaluation, model validation component. I think you can also add that one, so that after doing an evaluation, we validate that our model. So this will be model validation. Model validation.py. So that's it. I think that's okay. Then we'll have the utils. The utils will contain a file commons.py. This commons.py will contain the repeated functions that we will be using in our project. Then we'll have a file that will contain the configuration files. Then we have this will represent the different pipelines: the data ingestion pipeline, data validation pipeline, data transformation pipeline, model trainer, model evaluation.py. This model evaluation pipeline, and we'll also have the model validation there's no detail of this pipeline. Let's just say pipelines pip06 model validation pipeline. Then after that, we'll also need to create a predictions pipeline. So this will be used when handling, this will be used when handling the user data. Okay. Then we have the configuration entity for the configuration parameters. Then we also have the exception file that will enable us to handle the errors that might arise. The exception will enable us to create a custom exception, and the custom exception will be using it throughout our code so that we are able to raise any errors that might arise when creating our project. We also have a logger to spice up our code, create some logging information that will be necessary when debugging our code. We also have the config.yaml files that will contain the different configurations for our project. Parameters, this file will contain the parameters, the hyperparameters for our model. Schema.yaml contain the columns, the data types for the columns, the column names, and all that. So that will be contained in our schema. Main.py is a file that we can use it to create a central place where we can just execute all these pipelines. App.py will create a Flask app. Setup.py contains the instructions for our project itself. We can also use Streamlit for a front end. So we can use a Flask app or the Streamlit for that. So I think our environment is now set. We noticed you created an environment. That's okay. So let me just finish this, then we can activate the environment and all that. So Docker file. So if you want to create a container image for the project. Also, you can see we have the experiment. So we'll be first experimenting the different components before we convert our code into split our code into the different entities. So for the data ingestion, we'll create a trial for that to see if the code is working. Then we separate that code into the respective entities. So for the app.py, we'll need some templates, the home index, prediction, and all that. So at the end, you'll see how these files will be used. Then this one is just for the styling of these HTML files. So those are the different files that we will be using in this project. So I think that's it. Then to create all these files, we are going to loop through the list, each file in the list. So we are creating that loop for that. Then we split the file path into a directory and the file name. So you can see directory is like something like a folder, and the file name itself. So we need to split and define that this is a directory. This is the specific file in that directory. Then after that, create the directories if they do not exist. Then create an empty file if it does not exist or if it is empty. Okay, so that's it. So with this, then we can just execute this, and you will create all these files and folders. But before we commit to creating these files and folders, let's first activate our environment. Then from there, we start. So I'll just copy this command, activate, and activate. Then I think by this will activate our Python environment. So when you see this into those brackets, then you have activated your environment. So I'm going to relaunch my terminal. Then after that, I'm going to execute the template.py to create all those files. So to execute that, so Python template.py. When this is successful, you can see now that we do have those files and folders created with just a simple command. So that's it. So this is just a shortcut that starts creating one file and folder, one file and folder at a time. That takes a lot of time. So I think that's it. So we have created the virtual environment, and also the project files and folders. So the next step is all about now defining a list of the requirements that we are going to be using in this, of the dependencies, sorry, that we are going to be using in this model. Then we install those dependencies. Then I'll also go a little step ahead. Then we can create the logger, the exception, the utils, and also the constants. So those are I call those things like the constant things in your project development. So I'm just going to handle all those in this video. So let's start with the requirements file. So these requirements are we call this the dependencies. So our project requires some dependencies. So we have created an environment that will allow us to install these dependencies. So I'm just going to, I had created those earlier. I'm just going to show you all those. So for example, we have the pandas, scikit-learn, numpy, xgboost. So these are the different dependencies that we do need in our project. Okay, so like GBM, category encoders. All these are the necessary. All these are the necessary. All these are the necessary dependencies that we will be requiring in this project. So I think we'll be using light GBM instead of xgboost. So let me confirm something. I think we'll be using light GBM, not the xgboost. So I'll just do away with this. We don't need it. Then I'll also another thing, where I have IPY kernel. Again, I won't be needing this. Simply we need it, like GBM, DVC hub. So I think with this, everything is okay. So I'll just install this. So we'll just install this, but I do acknowledge that it will take some time to do that. So I want to do that at the very last of at the very last. So let's first create up the setup.py. So for the setup.py, here we are going to define the project that we are creating. So with the setup.py, so let me create the setup.py that will enable us to now access the requirements.txt file, because it contains the list of the dependencies. Then from there we are able to execute, download, and install those dependencies. So let's get the setup.py file. So I'm going to import the necessary libraries. So from setup tools, supposed to be setup tools, we're going to import find package as well as setup, and then from here we can from typing we can just say import list. Then in our requirements.txt file, we have the -e dot requirement. So this one, so we need to account for that in our setup.py. So you can say the -e dot requirement. So -e dot. So we don't need it to be included in our when installing those requirements, those dependencies. So it's supposed to be -e dot. We'll just do away that. So I'm going to create a function. So get requirements from a specific path. So get requirements from a given file path. That file path, remember, will be that file will be the requirements.txt file. So yes, then so it will be list. Then from here we create create an empty list. So requirements, create an empty list. Then use with pen file path. Just do away with this as file object, as file obj, with open brackets file path file as it's supposed to be as file object. Then specify the requirements. This will be file obj dot read lines. We are going to read the lines in our requirements.txt file. So we read the different lines as we are reading those files. We are going to download and install that specific dependency. Then requirements, we can specify that the requirements dot replace the new empty line, supposed to be /n. I think that's okay. We are going to replace the new line with an empty string. This should be a comma in between. Then for the requirements, in requirements, so I think that is requirements. Requirements, so that's it. So to remove the hyphen, so you can say if hyphen e dot, if this requirement is present, so if the hyphen e dot is in requirements, then we need to remove it. Requirements dot remove hyphen e dot. So that's okay. Then from that, I'll just copy it. So the version 0.0.1 for this model, and the SRC repository, that's the Churn, the source code, repository name, so that's the Churn setup. Then for the setup, then now we have the name, the version is this one here. Then we have the URL. So I'm just going to the URL that I'm providing is this one here, the web URL. This one here, and Predicton. So for the link, I'll just maybe use this one. I'll use this one here. Maybe I'll just use, but you can use any anyway. So this description, this is a project to classify customer churn. Then name of the author, email. For the find packages, this one here. So to install the requirements. The requirements, you're going to obtain the requirements from the requirements.txt file. Okay. So I think that's it. So when you want to install the requirements, you can use the command pip install -r, then requirements.txt. But I'm not going to do this because essentially I'm already done with it, and this process takes quite some time, because remember we have a lot of dependencies that we need to download and install, so it might take some time. But if you run this in your terminal, you'll be able to download and install all these requirements. Okay, so pip install -r requirements.txt. That's the command to download and install all these dependencies. So from here, the next thing that I'll want to show you is about what I call the constants. So the first one is that I'm going to create is a logger. So in the underscore init file, from here we are just going to I'm just going to paste my logger. So this is the one that we are going to be using. So with the logger, start by importing the necessary libraries. Then we define the log file name using the current date and time. So month, day, year, hour, minute, and second. Then we create a log file and then create the path to the log file. So this is the path to that file. And if it's not there already, we are going to create that log file. Then we can also create the log directory if it does not exist. So this is the code for that. Then we basically configure our logger. So the format will be the time in ascending, then the line number, then the name, then the level name, then the message itself. So from the handlers, we are going to view one in our terminal, and one will be saved under this log file path, this one here. So then that's it. So that's our logger. Also, another thing that we are going to create will be the exception. So whenever we are going to encounter challenges, which when developing our code, so we might encounter some errors while executing our code. So it will be prudent enough for us to be able to create a custom exception to enable us to find these errors and correct them. So for that, we are going to use this exception. So the method to extract the error details. So this is the created a function for that. This function at the end when erasing an error. So this is the formatted error message. So the message will be the file name, the line number, so that we are able to pinpoint the exact line number where the error is coming from, and the type of error that it's raising. Okay, so from there we need to define the custom exception. So this is how I define the custom exception. Then now we can override the string method to return the formatted error message. Okay, so that's it. So that's our exception. Then the next thing will be about the utils. So under utils, we have the commons.py folder. So these commons will be the necessary, or will be all the reusable functions that we do need in our project. Some of those functions will include, like say, when creating directories, we don't need to define every time we need to create a directory. We don't need to define. We'll just import this create directories function, and from there we are going to create those directories. When we are reading those YAML files, again we need this function to read the YAML file. So this function will read the YAML file and returns its contents as a config box object, so that it only returns the contents that we do need when using this read.yaml. So the path to YAML, this defines the path to the YAML file, and then the config box that we are using here, the contents of the YAML file as a config box object. So this is the function that we are going to use for that. While creating directories again, we're just going to import this function. So when saving any object, for example, the preprocessor object that we are going to be saving, so the preprocessor object will be necessary because it will enable us to transform the user input data. So that will be something like an object. So we are going to use the save object as a function to save those objects. So when saving those objects, we need to load those objects again. So then we just create this function, the load object. So this will load a Python object from a file using the job lib. Then just the argument file path to the file to load the object. Then it returns the loaded object, Python object. We'll have some JSON files. So we're saving those JSON files. Again, this is the function. While loading the JSON files, again, this is the function that can just recall. Save bin, load the bin, then get size. Okay, if you want to determine the size of the file, then we can just use this function. Okay, so these are the we can call these are the reusable functions that are necessary in our project. Instead of creating these functions now and then, we can just be importing these functions, and they can help us depending on the task that we want to achieve. So lastly, under constants, this will be, I think, the configuration files. So I'm just going to, so these are the configuration files. So the config.yaml, this will contain the different stages in our machine learning, and it will contain the stages, the file paths to different objects. So this will be listing those under the config.yaml file. So the params, as you can see, we created the params. So params, these are the hyperparameters and their values. So we'll be listing those in the params.yaml file. Schema will list the columns as well as the column names, as well as their data types, so that when we do the data validation, we'll just be calling the schema file to read the file. So the metrics, this one maybe we won't be using this in this project, so I'll just do away with this. It won't be necessary. Okay. So the constants, so we have created the constants, the logger, the exception, the utils, okay? And we did have we did not create or we did not run the setup or install the dependencies. So let me first push this to the Git repository, all these changes. So git add, then git add, then we can do git status, see which files that we are going to stage and commit to our Git repository. So changes to be committed. So this will gives a list of all the files that we are going to push to our Git repo. You can see the different files and folders. Essentially, when we go to our template.py, so these are the files that essentially we are going to push to our Git repository. That is changes to be committed. Then so that was git. It was git committed. No, it was git. Yeah, git add git status to see the files you're going to commit. Then from there we do git commit. Commit -m. So m is just provide a message, so you can say project files and folders. project files and folders. And once we do a git commit, then we can now push, so do a git push. So these are the files we are staging. So you commit to stage, then push to your git repository. So when pushing, use the command git push -u origin main, git push -u origin main. So when you push these commits, then you'll see the same commits in your git repo, so that if you're working as a team, then your colleagues might now just clone or fork the repo, then they will be able to get all these files that are in the git repository. So I think this one is okay. Now it's done. When we go back to our git repository, I'm just going to refresh this page. I can just Control R. So when you refresh this, you can see the files that we have committed to git repository. So that's it. So lastly, so let me do the let me because we have already pushed those, so let me just start this by installing the dependencies. So pip install -r requirements.txt. So this is how you can install the dependencies. So I just wanted this to be the last thing. So when you press enter after typing this command, then you will see this. You'll see the process commencing, obtaining file this and this, then preparing the metadata, setup done. So you'll see the files collecting pandas. So you'll see the files downloading and all that. This process essentially takes a lot of time, so I didn't want to spend a lot of time here. But when you see something like this in your terminal, then I just know that you are good. So this will continue until every dependency is downloaded and installed. So I think we will pick up from here in the next video. So because we have already set up our project files and created the environment and all that, so the next step, we're going to start with the different components in our machine learning model, and that will be data ingestion. So in the first video, I'll do the data ingestion and the data validation. Okay, so until next time. So again, if you find this informative, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit that notification bell so that you never miss any of these updates. Okay, so you can also share this video to friends and colleagues. Like the video on your way out. So until the next session, see you.